Hello, welcome to another episode of Tiny Nest. I'm Kiva.
And I'm Jake. This series is following our tiny house project from the early stages through to completion and beyond.
This is part one of our roofing video. When we put the roof on, we were in a really big rush to get it done, so we didn't take as much footage as we should have, but we made up for it by filming a lot when we put the roof onto the utility box.
So part one will focus on the eave flashing, which is the front piece, and the panel installation. And then part two will be more about the gable flashings and the peak components. I'm up on the scaffold and just wanted to give you a view of the first piece of metal roofing that we put on, which is the eave flashing, that front drip edge. There's 3 pieces and we've overlapped them 8 or more inches from piece to piece. Nailed it down with these simple roofing nails up high on this edge so that the asphalt paper can come and cover it comfortably. And then on the corners we did a cut and fold to help finish it off there. It's getting pretty hot up here on the roof. We're putting down the asphalt paper. We got the 30-pound stuff, and it's actually even thicker than I was expecting. There's a 15 and a 30-pound, but with pretty much everything, when we've been making a choice between that type of thing, we've just been going for the bigger stuff because we just need so little of it. So we might as well use the best stuff or the more resistant stuff when we have the option. We're nailing it down with these plastic cap nails again. I really like these because they got more surface area to hold down than like a staple, so there's less likely to tear if something pulls on the stuff. And then you need fewer of them, so fewer penetrations through anything that's supposed to be a water repellent barrier is good. And also because it's plastic on metal, it kind of makes a bit of a, moderate seal in itself. So I like these for this kind of thing. And yeah, we're just finishing this up and then we'll be putting the roof panels on. All right, the asphalt paper is down. The only reason it looks different over there is because it was a different roll. We left a little bit around the entire perimeter and folded it over and stapled it down. And each strip has been overlapped at least 6 inches or more. Here's a little scrap of the plastic ventilated furring strip that we're using. We're using this as the rain screen to stand off the siding, as well as underneath our metal roofing. Traditionally, a rain screen is made up of pressure-treated wood of about this dimension, and that does a fine job, except that in the application of a rain screen, air can't travel side to side. But as you can see, this sort of corrugated plastic that's open inside will allow that air to pass side to side. And then for the roofing, when it's laid horizontally, a lot of metal roofing is installed on horizontal wood strapping. And you get the same kind of situation where if water were to get in there, it would flow down and could potentially collect on the wood and have nowhere to go. But using this stuff again up there will allow potentially a drainage path as well as air to travel through to dry it out.
So here's the finished product of what is going underneath our metal roofing. As you can see, we've laid down some furring strips, and the idea behind that is just to provide a bit of space in between the metal roofing and the asphalt paper so that water can't get in there and not have any place to escape or dry out. We've also installed some bug screen on both edges of the roof, just to ensure against any bug infestation.
We're getting started with the roofing panels, and we've taken a bunch of time to try to line it up right, because with this kind of thing, if you're off by a very small amount at the start, the problem will get worse and worse as you go down. So we put one panel down on this end where we're gonna start, and made sure that the overhang was about an inch in front of the house. And then we put another panel down on the far end, matched the overhang, put one screw in each so that we could pivot them, then started measuring at the top and at the bottom and shifting them until we got them the same distance at the top and at the bottom, so we know that when we get to that end with the rest of the panels that it will stay in line. Always checking the overhangs, making sure that they're not getting out of square with the front of the building. Then we also grabbed the gable flashing and held it over the edge on both ends to make sure that it lined up with the seams on the panels. So we're doing our best to make sure that the panels are square with the house, they're square with the way that they're going to run, and everything is going to line up in the end. But there's only so much prepping we can do until we just have to do it and hope for the best. So we'll see how it goes. When I laid out these furring strips, I matched them to the slots on the first panel that I used to sort of get an idea of how things were going to go. But as it turns out, not all the panels have slots in the same spot. So I started by just drilling our own holes over each of the strips, but that process was proving to take a while. So we figured that we could save time just by grabbing little scraps of the furring strips and just sliding them under the existing slots. And that way the panels are sitting on top of the strips that we've already laid down, and when we screw down through these slots, it's not going to flex the panel, it'll just go against the strip, which was the intention in the first place. Another little challenge we had to deal with was that the roofing shipment didn't come with the screws that it was supposed to. Somehow it just got messed up in the order. They were supposed to be 1-inch panhead galvanized screws, number 10s, and when I went to our local hardware store, they don't have any galvanized screws because it's kind of an uncommon thing. It's just the zinc plated or stainless steel, and stainless steel are really expensive. So I went ahead and just dropped a bunch of money on the panhead stainless steel screws, but the panhead, because it's taller, seemed like it was interfering with the way the locking mechanism was going on. It sat down but didn't feel like it was going all the way, so I ended up going back and picking up the sort of wood screw style tapered tops so that there's a bit of a lower profile in the finished product, and then the locking mechanism is feeling better now that we're doing it this way. Alright, we're getting near the end with the paneling, and before I ran out of space here, I thought I'd show you the installation of one of them. It's pretty cool. You can see the previous one, I've got the screws in there, and then the next one fits over top of it on this ridge and will click down. So first I'm just going to line it up, the last one, and then work it down. After we installed about 4 of them, it looked like we were coming away from the front drip edge, and it looked like we'd gained about 3/16 after those 4 pieces. So that means that we were likely very slightly out of square with the plane of the roof sheathing. So we would have to have done another 4 times that many panels roughly. So 4 times the 3/16 would be quite a bit out, which would be pretty noticeable. So we started to kick each panel back. It looked like we could get about a 32nd of an inch without it being noticeable. So we've done that on each one, because a 32nd of an inch times whatever the 16 panels or so would actually about counteract roughly that amount that we would have been out. So we've been doing that, and it looks pretty good, it looks pretty straight, and we've managed to maintain the an equal overhang along the whole front of the building. To shift a panel just a tiny bit, just using a mallet and just gently tapping it until it's moved that 32nd or so of an inch. There we go. And then I've just been using a speed square and making sure to look at the same angle every time to see where we're at and make sure that everything's been staying on track and it looks good enough. So now I'll screw it down. And I have been drilling our own pilot holes on the very bottommost and topmost furring strip to make sure that it's got equal fastening on the edges. All right, and then I've just been giving it a bit of a sweep and then pulling this little plastic protective cover that it came shipped with. We should mention that when we ordered the panels, we provided a precise length. The roofing system specified that it should have 1 inch of overhang on the low drip edge, and that the panel should end 1.5 inches short of the peak on the high side. And that's how we arrived at an 8-foot 11-inch panel length. We're in a bit of a rush to get this done, so I'm going to show you how we do it, and then you'll see how it fits in after. So what we need to do is cut a panel lengthwise, and we don't have a grinder on hand or a proper metal cutting tool. So I've just clamped down some pieces of wood that are spacing off the amount that we need, and I'm just going to score it a bunch of times with a razor knife, and then hopefully we'll be able to bend it and just use the metal fatigue to bust it into the piece that we need. Okay, we've scored it a whole bunch of times, and I'm going to wedge it between two pieces of wood so that when we flex it, it forces the bend to be along our scoring, and hopefully it's going to work. It's also worth noting that this is the edge that's going to be covered by the gable flashing, so if we make a bit of a mess out of it, it's not a big deal because it won't be visible. Now, I saw Mr. Dan Luche do this in a video, so hopefully it's going to work. Oh, I might need you to stand on this.
And film you?
I don't know. No, I'll stand on it. I need to put my weight on it. Oh yeah. Took a little more wrangling than I thought. Probably one of the less graceful things I've ever done, but
It didn't look like that when Mr. Luche did it.
all right, well, it's a fairly clean cut after a little elbow grease. And now I'm just gonna bang this edge up a bit. Again, we don't have proper metal tools because we're just doing a little bit of this. But we need to bend about a 1 inch edge on the piece that we've cut here. So I've just kept it wedged between the pieces of wood, and I'm just banging it with a soft mallet. Alright. So we had to do a little extra trimming to make it fit properly, but this is the piece that we were working on before, and the idea here is that because there's only space for half a panel, when you cut it halfway, if it was just totally flat and water were to somehow find its way under here, which it shouldn't, but if it did, it could potentially run off the side and get under or onto the side of the fascia in where it's kind of not supposed to be. So this lip basically allows for an extra barrier. So if the water does get under here, it'll hit this and run down instead of running off. And this kind of idea is how the whole locking system works. There's a ridge underneath, this piece is ridge, and then another ridge over top of it. So if water's on here, it can't go under there, come up against gravity, go over, and then get down underneath the roofing. So that's what this is all about.
So that's it for the relevant footage of the actual roof. So now we're going to move on to show the roofing on the utility box.
Alright, I've fastened down the asphalt paper, and I just used these plastic cap nails we've used before. And I've left a flap up at the top here, and as you can see I already taped an extra flap of house wrap to the house. And the idea there is to shed the water from top to bottom. If water gets behind the siding on the house, it can trickle down, it'll go on top of this flap down into the asphalt paper and find its way out. And the nice thing about this is that because we built the box after the fact, if water were to find its way in behind this layering, the only thing that could potentially get wet is the box, because the house has its own unbroken layer of house wrap on it. And the box getting a bit wet isn't as big of a deal as if we had cut the house wrap of the house and folded it over and incorporated the box into the entire house's waterproofing layer. We had one panel left over from the roofing, and we determined that if we cut it into 5 equal pieces, it will fit the box perfectly. So I've been cutting it up. You can't use snips for this kind of thing because of the ridge. You just make a horrible mess out of it, and that edge is going to be showing on the front. So I went out and bought a cheap grinder, and I bought a really thin cutting wheel. And I've been trying a couple different things. I put tape over the cut on the first few to try to keep the filings from getting everywhere, but the filings were just getting under the tape anyway, so I abandoned that, and it works just fine without it. So I'm just marking right on the top of the panel and cutting it. I'm using a square to make sure that my lines are perpendicular to the length of the panel, because if I make a cut and then measure off that, then make another cut and measure off that, if it's a bit out, it's also going to get really wonky because those edges are all going to need to line up along the front to make a nice finished edge. So I'm going to go ahead and mark and cut this one. It's a bit hard to explain, but I found it difficult to cut one ridge, slice across the panel, and then make a cut on the other ridge that matched up with it. So I found it easier to cut the two ridges first, and then make a slice across the panel that linked the two cuts together. To clean up the cut edge, I'm going to run a file along the bottom, and then just gently on the top, and then I'm going to trim off the remaining burrs with a razor knife. Alright, I finished cleaning up the panels and ready to install them. We're just duplicating what we did on the roof with these ventilated furring strips and the bug screen on the bottom. I've got that in place now. I put the first panel down and actually test fit the rest of them to square it. That was actually easy because it's just a short little span here. Took off the rest of the pieces and just gonna fasten them all down now. And here it is with the panels installed. They cleaned up pretty well, and I wiped them down really thoroughly because it's really important to get any metal shavings off the surface, either from grinding or drilling. Any filings like that will corrode really easily and rust, and they can even affect the paint on the surface of the panels.
Okay, so we will end this episode here and carry on in part 2 of our roofing video. If you want to see some of our previous videos, click on the preview tiles, and subscribe if you want to follow our progress.